Hello and welcome to the Warp Shelf. I'm Frank Duran.
I'm Deshaun Vasquez.
And today we're going to find out if these Oscars belonged on your shelf. And basically, they didn't. They did not. They did not belong on your shelf.
Any of the films nominated did.
Yes, exactly. So we'll be basically today, guys. Just so you know, if you're thinking that we're going to get deep on Will Smith or something like that,
like this is a gossip podcast or something.
No. This is a film and TV and video game podcast
and general discussion of art.
Right. And so we're going to talk about art today. We're not going to talk about the many things. We may say that Amy Schumer's jokes were really, really bad and harmful towards animation. But we're not going to talk about the Will Smith stuff. Basically, my take on it is that if you take two millionaires slapping each other further than just laughing, then you miss the it's 2 millionaires slapping each other. It's hilarious. It shouldn't be anything other than that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I have my opinions. I have my opinions, but it's just one of those things where, like, I saw it was another opportunity for people to tell on themselves.
Yes.
Yet again.
Yes. Yeah.
Just like even people I know were just like, a lot of red flags, a lot of red flag takes today. I'm gonna just sit back here and just observe while you guys embarrass yourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So we're not going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about every one of the award winners. You can go back and watch a lot of episodes. We have covered the big winners of the night. Coda,
we usually do whatever the best
Dune.
picture is.
But we'll talk a little bit about them. Don't worry. We'll talk about context because we'll go through pretty much every award here and kind of talk about, what happened here. So it's the quick ones, of course, are the shorts, which kind of got sent off to be in the highlight reel, which was another questionable thing that happened at this Oscars, is that they sent a lot of awards to a highlight reel that they played instead of actually doing them. And I know it's already a 3-hour show and a 4-hour show almost. It's hard to fit all that stuff in there, but it is also your awards. Like,
if you spent less time on unfunny shenanigans and put more actual times into the awards themselves, and we probably would have enough room to squeeze those in.
It's true. It's like they have. The thing about the jokes for me is that they always feel like they have a year to write jokes for the Academy Awards, and then they feel like they've all written the jokes the night before and they're just trying them on stage. Even though I know they rehearsed it earlier in the week and they rehearsed it the day before, I know how the process goes. And it's kind of one of those things that, like, how do we still get so many unfunny jokes? Because there's a couple embarrassing moments here, like actually embarrassing moments, like the Amy Schumer saying that animation is for kids is an embarrassing moment for the Academy, which has 2 categories about animation and several others in their science awards. It's messed up that they even put that in the script. It's kind of like, what?
It's such a reductive, childish notion, but it highlights that the Oscars have always treated animation like this. I mean, we only got a best animated film category just because after Beauty and the Beast got nominated for best picture, they were like, that shit ain't happening again.
We can't have that.
Get them fucking cartoons out of this category.
And I feel like the Oscars sometimes shows blatant disrespect towards animation. And it's not just this year. It's kind of one of those things that, it's always been like this, where, like you said, Beauty and the Beast came up and they were like, nah.
Yeah, it's funny. There was a tweet that was making the rounds of, it's funny how condescending they are to, animation as a medium and it being mostly for children's entertainment when the most popular animated content this past year was stuff like Arcane and Invincible.
Yeah, right. And Encanto's the biggest movie of this decade so far. If we're talking about movies that have sold not just ticket sales, but but also like merchandise. Encanto's one of the biggest movies of this decade. I know it's fucking early, but you know, like you're just like, you gotta acknowledge, you know, like what's going on here. You know, like if we're talking about it, animation's most of the time a bigger form than just film, you know, like, and it's like one of those things where I don't know why the disrespect comes.
Just like, what do you think hard carries every single superhero film you go see now?
Right? You're like, hey guys, CGI is animation, you know?
Yeah.
You're like, we got to talk about this a little bit.
I mean, like we've often defended like animation as like, again, it's not a genre, it's a medium. You can tell all kinds of stories there. And I think it tends to be specifically a US thing, the condescension about it.
Yeah.
Like you go over to good old Japan and they love them some animation. They still love traditionally animated stuff. They treat it just as seriously. Voice actors are much more respected over there.
The biggest movie in China, if we're talking other countries, biggest movie in China was for several years was those ones that came to Netflix. It's the Three Kingdoms retelling. And they also have another one that's animated that's like Journey to the West. And that did bonkers in China. It's like these animated movies are the real money here, and it's kind of funny that they disrespect them so much in a world where like we're fighting for film relevance. You know?
Or like Spirited Away outgrossing Titanic over in international waters.
Exactly.
Like we love. Show some goddamn respect to this amazing medium. I mean, look, man, I'm wearing a Samurai Jack shirt.
Yes, and I should have said this was my only thing I said about Will Smith. That wasn't very Cash Money of you. But the other thing that was kind of embarrassing joke-wise was there was a Jason Momoa joke where they kind of objectified him, and it was kind of like, it was one of those moments where I was like, so it's like, and I know Slash Film already did like a whole thing being like it's okay to objectify men. What the hell? And it's like, it's true though. It's like, why is it okay? Like I've seen clips of people just like objectifying Henry Cavill to his face, and you know, like it's just not. It's not okay. It's like, yeah, they're beautiful people, but they're people. You can't just be weird.
Especially for someone like Henry Cavill, who's admitted that he's gone through like body shaming issues. Like he has that story of like how he went to go audition to be James Bond and they told him he was too chubby.
You're like, what?
Just like this beautiful man who looks like he was sculpted out of fucking clay.
And you have something to say about it? Like, crazy. And like, that's the thing. It was a bad joke. They were doing it to objectify Jason Momoa. And it was kind of like, it's one of those things where the problem with the Academy Awards, and I think that this is like the general problem before we get into each of the awards, is the award is for most of the time the highest artistry in the movies, you know, like it's like that's who wins.
What the intent is.
That's what the intent is. Yeah, exactly. That's the intent. But then we have these like terrible jokes in between. Like, you know, like why aren't we like the Academy should take notes from the Tonys, because there should be just film things in between. There should not be like the Tonys is always just like, we got a break. It's a song. It's, you know, it's like, and another song and another song. They show off the artistry that's going on. And it's like, and it's funny because you can tell the best moment for the filmmakers is like the stuff that they do. Like they had the tribute to Godfather this year. And there's this great picture of Steven Spielberg with his phone out filming it like a P-pop. He's like, oh, it's P-pop Spielberg. And he's so excited to see the Godfather stuff that he's filming it on his phone. It's like, you're like, Steven, it's going to be online later. You can just find it. But you're just
like, it's also like, you know, Steven's one of those old school filmmakers. Like, I only shoot on film. Don't watch my films on your phone. God damn it.
That's why
not as hardcore as like Scorsese or David Lynch. David Lynch cracks me up.
Yeah, right.
He's a total purist about it. It's just like, if you watch one of my movies on your phone, then you didn't actually watch my movie.
I mean, he's got a point, you know, like it's like it's a different experience. You didn't experience this movie.
Mhm.
But it's like that's my main issue is that we are dealing with a very very serious awards, you know, like, and then it's very silly with the jokes. And I know that's what they're trying to do. They're like, oh, we don't want the Oscars to be stuffy. We want people to talk about it. But like, why does it have to be so much cringe instead of just like, oh, this is an elegant award show, you know? Like,
And that was like, I mean, I knew the cringe was coming basically as soon as they said like Amy Schumer's like 3 hosts. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. Just like Regina Hall, Wanda Sykes, and Amy Schumer. I'm like, okay, I like 2 of those.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Wanda Sykes. I've set up for her before for a show, and she's great in person. She's a very nice person, and and I knew she would be able to handle like the weird Oscars crowd, you know,
Yeah.
like, and it's, but like when they said Amy Schumer, I'm like, is Amy Schumer as big as the Oscars think she is, or as anybody thinks she is? I guess
That's kind of been Amy Schumer's whole career, really.
and I don't mean to be I don't mean to be mean or diminish her things, because she's made a lot of movies, she's made a lot of content.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of work to do that. What I am saying is that she steals jokes. There's literal videos you can watch where she's saying the same joke as a fellow comedian who definitely came up with it first. It's like one of those things that I don't, in comedy circles, stealing jokes is like the most heinous of crimes. And like, so I don't even know how she's still doing anything, you know, like why we haven't been
think
like,
about like
stop that.
Mencia, who you never hear about anymore.
Right? You're like, yeah, when you steal jokes, it's over, you know, like it's kind of like, no, you're the end of your rope here, you know? So, but besides the point, so let's do the awards. So we didn't see the shorts. Did you see any of the shorts? We have best documentary short, The Queen of Basketball.
I was almost half tempted to go see them because the Coolidge always does them.
Oh,
as like a big compilation that you can watch.
That's awesome. Yeah, you get all the credit to the Coolidge Corner Theater in Boston. It's amazing. And they had best animated short, The Windshield Wiper. Best live action short, The Long Goodbye, which of course I was looking it up this morning to try to see if I could find the short, and like they were like The Long Goodbye from 89, The Long Goodbye from 47, and I was like, no, go please.
Yeah,
I need your help here. The next awards, best makeup and hairstyling. Me and Mary actually watched this movie last night, The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Did you see it?
I did. Yeah, it was really good.
Nice. Yeah, it's really good. You know, I think we've talked about it before. Me and Deshaun are quite skeptical. Why can't I say the word? We're skeptics on biography films because it's hard. It's hard to sum up somebody's life, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
and especially if you go into any sort of subgenre, like any biopic about a musician, you already know how this movie's going to play out beat for beat, whether it's accurate or not. And it's gotten to the point where it's kind of a joke.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
I laugh at Bohemian Rhapsody because it's literally what Walk Hard was making fun of like 10 years ago.
I think Eyes of Tammy Faye is actually a really great film. Of course, Jessica Chastain is absolutely killing it in this role. We'll talk about it a little bit more later, but basically she goes through these she's fantastic in the role. She's wearing all these different makeups to show her through the years, and then she's singing the covers of Tammy Faye's songs. You're just like, yeah, of course she won Best Actress for this year. That's like triple duty, you know, like that's like, you know, like so much work into that role.
Yeah, the trifecta.
You can see her love for this role.
Yeah. All that was missing was it to be more like historical.
Yes,
because you know those like little
but
points,
it's based
those little
on a
bullet points.
it's based on a documentary. So if you
Yeah.
want the historical, it's like you can just watch the documentary that's already out. It's a big documentary. It's got RuPaul as the narrator. You know, I've never seen it, but it's like if you do want that like more what actually happened type of thing.
Yeah.
It's called The Eyes of Tammy Faye. It's not even changed.
in plenty of cases, like sometimes the documentary is actually your better option.
Yeah, I would say they do. I mean, this is such a treat. You get Jessica Chastain doing a fantastic job, and then Andrew Garfield absolutely killing it in the role.
Yeah,
like I of course he's fantastic.
Oh,
and
Andrew Garfield doing well in something.
Yeah, right. You're like, oh, did Andrew Garfield just destroy this past year? Did he absolutely like slam dunk the entire year? How did he fit in Tick Tick Boom? This. And Spider-Man, how do you fit that in? You know, like, but he's amazing in every single one. And I think that there's so many other great actors in this. It's really good. I was impressed. It's a little messy. It's like at the beginning, I feel like it kind of doesn't know where it wants to land, but then it goes. I think it's just a little. It suffers from being a biography, you know, like it's because there's actual slow parts in people's lives. You know, it can't just be a build-up climax, you know. Like, and
sometimes when you dramatize something that was relatively mundane, it comes off as kind of over the top.
Yes, exactly. But I think that this award is absolutely deserved. Best makeup and hairstyling, no question, goes to this movie in my mind. It's like
the other nominees:
Dune, Cruella, Coming to America, and House of Gucci, which they all do fantastic jobs, of course. But if Dune was gonna win 6 other awards, at least they gave this to The Eyes of Tammy Faye, which walks away with 2 awards tonight. Next up is the big runner-up of the night. So I think there's something going on here because of course there's the Power of Dog had the most nominations. Like absolutely was the front runner. You know, like people thought Power of Dog was going to win. It was like a unique story with great actors doing great things, you know, like, and it only walks away with the best director nomination, which that was a big category there. It was full of Spielberg and sorry, I'll get it up here. Paul Thomas Anderson, Spielberg, Sir Kenneth Branagh, and I'm gonna mispronounce the director of Drive My Car, so I'm not even gonna try. Sorry, but he is. All of these are masters of their craft. So for Jane Campion to take it is awesome. You're like she's up there with the absolute big dogs, the legends, and she still takes it. But it's kind of like, it's funny because it's sometimes when they nominate a movie a ton and then they know it's not going to win a bunch of awards, they give it the director's nod, you know, like they give it I feel like that happens sometimes with the like.
I mean, basically the opposite happened with Dune.
Yeah.
It's just like, well, we're already nominating Dune for so much, so Denis Villeneuve doesn't need the director nomination. You're like, huh?
You're like, wait, what? Okay. Like you give it up for his production design and so many other things, but you're like, but his directing, dead. You're like,
yeah. It's kind of like when Spielberg wasn't nominated for best director for Jaws back in the day, even though Jaws was like
killing it and just like literally held cinema together that year. But best production design went to Dune here, and Dune is the biggest winner of the night. It won the most awards. It didn't win the big award, but it won the most. I think that's 6. So we'll know by the end of this. But best production design, in my mind, this was like if you were nominating Dune at all, this was the obvious win for the
just
category.
For the ornithopters alone.
Yeah, of course, right.
This is the ornithopter award, basically.
I completely agree. I was just like, yeah, no, that's the reason why it won. You know, like, great job to Nightmare Alley, West Side Story, and Tragedy Macbeth, and The Power of Dog, but like, come on now.
Mm.
Like in that category, you're like, who is beating Dune? You know, like it's such a cohesive vision. It had to win production design.
Yeah.
Best sound goes to Dune 2, which I agree with. It's a beautiful feeling, like sound design. You know, like when you're in the theater, it's moving through you.
Yeah, I saw it in IMAX, so that shit shook you to your core.
And it's like, and this is the category that they could have at least given Bond its one Oscar nod, because they always every time a Bond comes out and it's decent, they're like, you get an Oscar nod. And this was its category for best sound. And they won best original song, right? Billie Eilish. So it's like they do still win, you know, like it's not like James Bond's getting nominated for nothing, but usually this is the category that they're like, we'll give it to Bond.
Yeah, but it's also one of those things where like No Time to Die is good, but it's not like it ain't Casino Royale good, it ain't Skyfall good, but it's good. It is very good.
I still haven't seen it. I need to get on it. I really do. The next category, best costume design. Have you seen Cruella? I haven't seen Cruella yet. And it was one of those things that I keep being like,
it's kind of the only thing I wanted to watch it for. Like I just wanted to watch it for Emma Stone,
right?
All goffed up. That's kind of it. Very superficial.
Right. I think it's funny that they gave it to Disney on this one, because they, you know, like they could have just given it to Dune still, if you know, like if they're it felt like it was Dune's category, you know, like, but also it feels like sometimes they're like, well, Disney sponsored half of this show, and so we have to give it something that they can add to Disney Plus to say Academy Award winning Cruella DeVille. You know?
Yeah, Dune had great costume work too. That's the thing.
Yeah, Dune, and it's like in Nightmare Alley's on here, and West Side Story. West Side Story, I was like, come, guys, they were able to do this whole period piece. How is this not winning? But I still haven't seen Cruella, so I can't.
I mean, Nightmare Alley's the same way. Nightmare Alley's a period piece too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I do think basically it's a Disney thing, I think there, you know, like it's them being like, yeah, we'll give it to Disney. They have the category on there being like 2022 Academy Awards, and you can like select all their winners and stuff like that. And nominations. So, best film editing goes to Dune. And yeah. You know, like it's.
Just the conceit of condensing half of a fucking tome into just one film, and it being cohesive. Because the trouble with adapting Dune from the jump, and why we've had like the David Lynch film, and like many attempts, and it just all falling apart, is because Dune is very dense and heavy with its world building, so it's really tough to adapt.
And it's one of those things that I feel like, kind of like Mad Max Fury Road, Dune's editing stands out. You know, like you definitely notice the editing going on, you know, which is some editors will say, I know Enver's probably somewhere being like, you shouldn't notice the editor, you know, like Enver from our college. But it's like you should.
Well, we also have two different perspectives.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's one of those things that like, yes, not noticing the editor is high art, but also being able to put your stamp on it as an editor, so you do notice, is it takes first off guts, but also it takes a lot of skill, you know, like to be able to do that. And I think that the other one that should have probably gotten the editing was Tick Tick Boom. I do love the way it like cuts between his life, but it's and from the shows he's doing to like conversations with family members. It's pretty amazing. But it's funny that the thing about this category is they don't always include everything. This morning I was watching the winner of best documentary, The Sounds of Summer. I was like,
Summer of Soul.
Summer of Soul. Sorry. I was like, I have an hour before we record. Let me throw this on. What an incredible edit. Like, what, this movie is incredibly edited. It's definitely, I see why it won best documentary. It's incredible. It's amazing. It's a history tale, but also a giant concert movie for literally legends, you know, like every single
Yeah.
person on stage is a legend, and you're like, what is happening in this movie?
And that was part of the problem with the whole slap debacle, is that it sort of completely overshadowed The Win, which was right afterward.
Yeah, it's sad. It's like one of those things that Questlove, it's like he really put something amazing together here.
Something that was sort of more or less forgotten by the history books, that no one thought any footage existed for it anymore, and just being able to find that, like, it's something important for history.
Exactly.
And it's also just a great watch. I remember seeing a trailer for, I've seen it now.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing a trailer for it, I think when I went to go see The Green Knight at the Coolidge, they had a trailer for it. I'm like, oh, I'm interested.
I was really excited when it was put up on streaming, and it's kind of upsetting it's not nominated for best editing. I feel like sometimes they do that with the documentaries. They go, oh no, you got your documentary nod. You're not a real film.
Yeah.
And it's like the same thing they do with the animation, where they're like, no, you're a different category. You're like, no, this movie was so fantastic editing wise. Being able to, like, that opening with Stevie Wonder playing with the news clips going, and also everyone reminiscing about the whole Harlem Cultural Festival. My film boner is gigantic. It's fantastic. And it's one of those things that I was like, that was the best edited thing I've seen all year. Like, you know, like I was like, that was incredible. And that wasn't even up, you know, like that wasn't even a conversation. Like, I don't,
Frank, that ain't no real movie.
It's upsetting.
No real movie. Instead, we're gonna nominate the thing that tries to emulate real life. It's weird that there's that disconnect.
Yeah.
Of like, documentaries are put in this bubble, and yet like a narrative version of a real life event they fucking drool over.
Right. It's true. Exactly. And you're like, but that's the real thing. That was it. You know, you're like, well, what? But besides the point, good on Dune. Next up, best visual effects. We already said it. It's Dune, and it was Dune the whole time because, come on. It's the copter. It's amazing.
The ornithopters.
And making the dust look cool without looking bad, you know, like, all the time.
There's always different ways to approach the spice.
Oh, and being able to when they cut to the warriors in the rain, I forget their name at the moment, but they're doing the blood sacrifice. Yes, that's an amazing visual effects sequence, and like that's why this deserves it. It's like their visual effects are subtle at times, you know, like of course it's like, hey, sci-fi copters, you know, like, but then at times you're just like, no, we're gonna do this big gigantic scene that's completely sci-fi and couldn't happen, you know, like anywhere.
Denis Villeneuve is really good at directing films with like much more like simple yet elegant special effects. Like you think of the stuff in Arrival, or like the hologram for Joy in Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah. Blade Runner, which is full of CGI, it's like it's still subtle, you know, like it's not in your face, you know, like it's unlike these other ones out here, like Free Guy, which is very in your face about its CGI, like the, Spider-Man, Shang-Chi, and No Time to Die are the other nominations on this. And
or like I'm thinking of the shields from Dune, which is also a very simple but effective effect.
Oh, that's the reason why it won, you know, like if we're talking visual effects wise, because that's a problem that obviously plagued the 80s people, and like
with the Minecraft blocks and shields.
And it also there was a TV on the TV version of Dune on Sci-Fi, and they had trouble with it. It's like, I think you got to respect that, like, we finally figured out this adaptation process and it worked, you know, like we were able to adapt it in a great way. I think it's funny that Free Guy even has a nomination on here. I haven't watched Free Guy, so I can't. I guess I'm hating for no reason, but I was like, what's happening here? And Shang-Chi, it does look good. It looks great most of the time. So I would have liked to see Shang-Chi at least win one here, you know, where it would have been like, you know, like, hey.
But there's also like the scene on the bus is kind of spotty.
It is.
We
that's
talked
the thing.
about that in our episode about it.
That's spotty, and so is watching it in 4K on Disney Plus. You can see when they're finally, what's the land that they finally get to at the end?
I can't remember.
I can't remember, but it's like when they get to the final land, there's some shots where you're like, it doesn't look good back there, guys. like you're like it looks good up here, but back there that doesn't look so good. And you know, but besides it's like any other animation. You don't spend the time on stuff that they probably won't be paying attention to. But I give it up to Dune here. You got to give it up. Best cinematography, Dune again. Now this is a hard category. I got to give it up. This is a hard category. I think
going up against?
It's going up against The Power Dog, which I've seen some beautiful shots from that movie. I haven't seen it, but I know it's beautiful. And Tragedy Macbeth. Just watch that trailer. What's happening there? You know, like you're like, that's an amazing cinematography. Nightmare Alley, which of course is Guillermo, and you're like, come on, he's killing it. He's killing it as always. And I do give it up to West Side Story. What I've now watched it twice now because of course it came to Disney Plus and Hulu and all that and HBO Max, which I thought was kind of like, what's happening? But I was like, they're just Spielberg's like, take it, all of you, take it. But I've seen it twice now, and beautiful cinematography. Like it's one of those things that like, you know, like it's a hard category to give to a musical because sometimes it does win like Les Mis and stuff like that, and like and then you get something like Cats because he thinks that he can do anything because we gave him an Oscar, you know, like it's like it's like the guy was like, oh, I won King's Speech, I won cinematography for that, I won with Les Mis, let me go to Cats. You're like, what just happened there?
I'm invincible.
Yeah, right. That's Cats is somebody being like, I'm invincible, you know.
And to a lesser extent, like Jon Favreau with The Lion King, just riding the high from Jungle Book. He's like, I'm invincible.
I'm invincible. I mean, same thing with the after the third Transformers movie, Michael Bay even making more of them. You're like,
that whole story of Spielberg having to be like, stop it. Make maybe 3 and then move on, which I found kind of ironic. I'm like, Spielberg, aren't you trying to gear up for a fucking 5th Indiana Jones movie? What the hell are you talking about?
And he's producing the 6th Jurassic World. You're like, but it's true. It's like, I think Spielberg's being kind here because it's like, it sounds like he's being mean to him, but he's being like, Michael Bay, you are a great filmmaker, which I know a lot of people be mad about that, but that's what Steven's saying. And I think people respect Michael Bay's craft, you know, like, I don't think it's like, yeah, you could be like his movies were shit, but like the craft he does, I think everyone can respect.
I respect Michael Bay on a technical standpoint, from a technical level.
I think it's funny that they were like, L.A. Or Ambulance is his best rated movie. I was like, no, duh. I was like, yeah, no, duh. But
been nominated for best 3-minute movie,
best short, best action short,
best short. So much movie in this trailer.
But like, I think that Steven's being kind here because he's like, look, you are a great filmmaker. This is a franchise that you could produce and hand off to somebody else. Like,
please.
Like, yeah, exactly. And like, just you have more work to do is what Steven's basically saying there, you know, like is that he's got more work to do. He doesn't have to be stuck in this. And I think that's what I think that's the great thing about Steven Spielberg and of course, all these great directors who are still around with us.
Yeah, still working.
They have such a view of history on these directors, you know, like it's like, look at your work, bro, like look what you put out to the world, you know, like that's what you need to work on, you know, like and I think it's quite interesting, you know,
and like, also any suggestion of Michael Bay not doing more Transformers movies is a net positive.
Is a net positive.
As soon as he left, we got Bumblebee, and that was already a big improvement, so let's just keep it going.
Yeah, exactly. But what I was saying was West Side Story cinematography is actually it's stupendous. I would have liked to see it win this category.
I think West Side Story is the only one in this category that I haven't seen.
Really? That's funny. It's on everywhere. Check that out. Now, best original score. Dune wins this category with Hans Zimmer. Thank you. Give the Oscar to Hans Zimmer. The man only has one other Oscar. And it's one of those things where you're like, this man has contributed so damn much to this medium, and like we're just gonna let him walk away with one Oscar. You know, like what's happening here?
Just think about the Inception like Blair,
Right?
alone, and how that just started that trend
that like
of everyone
changed
trying
things.
that. Yeah,
that changed things. In a bad way sometimes, but you know, it changed things.
but you can't blame the trendsetter.
Right? You can't blame the trendsetter. But they were going up against Power Dog, Don't Look Up, Encanto, and Parallel Mothers. I haven't seen that movie.
I have. It's very good.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. I've been going to the Coolidge a lot lately.
Yeah, he's been going.
This is where I see all this shit. It wasn't even like, oh, I'm gonna go see the Oscar movies. I'm like, that looks like a good movie, and I have time. I'll go to the Coolidge. And then it turned out to be like, oh shit, I've seen most of the Best Picture nominees at the Coolidge.
That's awesome. Now I think that of course, Encanto and Don't Look Up are interesting nomination for Best Original Score because Encanto is also like, you know, a full on musical, so it's like and
I think for
like,
the general
okay.
public, it can be tough to like separate that too, because the focus was primarily on like the vocal songs that you might not even really pay much mind to the
That's
score.
why I'm like, that's not the score. I was like the songs are great, and you know, like, but the scores, I was like, I didn't even like think too much about it.
Yeah,
and
but
Don't Look Up.
It depends on the movie.
Right?
Like you have movies that are musicals that have great songs and a great score, like Lion King. You have great songs by Elton John and Tim Rice, but then you have the fucking Hans Zimmer score, so it's just bangers on both sides.
Banger. Yeah, and I think that it's one of those things that's like it's hard for Don't Look Up. They had like pop, you know, some certain pop songs, but they made it for the movie, you know, like so it's kind of like. It's an interesting category, the best original score. Excuse me, best original score. But I think obviously give it to Dune, give it to Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, Hans Zimmer, and since we already finished talking about cinematography, but I do want to say it's interesting watching Greg Fraser's career go up and up and up.
Right,
because like he did Dune,
is a legend.
The Batman, and you're just like, okay, he's a name. He's someone to watch out for.
Seriously, if he's working on a project, it's time to watch that project.
Yeah.
Now, best original song goes to "No Time to Die" by Billie Eilish. I think that this is it's an obvious win. Because you're like, this is the biggest name in this lineup here, other than of course Beyonce and King Richard, I guess. That's the biggest name. But you're like, no, I'm sorry, no disrespect to Beyonce, not at all. She's the biggest name. So it's a kind of so we have No Time to Die going against Dos Orangutans, I can't say it from Encanto, but Lin-Manuel wrote it. Be Alive from King Richard by Beyonce. Belfast, Down to Joy by Van Morrison. Somehow You Do for Good Days by Diana Warren. This is always a hard category because they're all usually really great picks. And this is, I think, some really good picks here. But again, we already said the 007 thing. Like sometimes the Academy Awards is like, well, we got to give it to James Bond. You know,
yeah,
like,
but I do like the song.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that that's the thing, is that there's a lot of great James Bond songs. So you're competing with every James Bond song, and she was able to do something great and still fit in the vein and play to her strengths here, you know, that like sultry, like
I feel like a lot
jazz
of
voice she's got going on works really
like
well for Bond.
I feel like Bond themes are actually really good about that, like taking artists that you wouldn't think would fit the mold for like a James Bond opening and actually like delivering. Like I'm not a Sam Smith guy, but you put him and make him do a James
but he's
Bond
so
theme,
damn good,
and you're just like, huh.
No, I heard the thing about that song is that he has always wanted to write a Bond opening. He like states that he's like, and I was like asking about it and like really trying to make it happen.
You can tell because you listen to the fucking opening song for Spectre and he's just going fucking hard. He's like pouring his goddamn soul into it.
And you're following like Adele You know, like it's and Chris Cornell, you know, like these are hard acts to follow, you know, like these
and Alicia Keys and Jack White, I guess.
yeah, I guess. That's
I like them both separately, and I like things that they've done, but together they made a mess.
yeah, I agree. Now best international feature, Drive My Car, which I was not surprised. It was up for best picture. This was you already knew the Academy thought this was better than the other international pictures. Now I haven't seen it, Deshaun, but you have.
It's very good.
Very good. Yeah. It's on Hulu now, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
so it's available to stream right now. And I'm definitely excited to watch it. Now, can you give a quick summary of what it is? Because I don't even know, and I'm sure our audience feels the same.
I think it's almost better for you not to have like a basic premise of it. Not like there's going to be a huge mystery or anything, but let's just say it's
good to go in blind.
It's more about human connection, and it sort of has that it almost has that sort of Richard Linklater effect of just like taking what should be a mundane situation and like exposing like the real heart of it all.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm down. All right. So guys, yeah, going blind. I guess like me, I'm gonna watch it soon then. Best documentary feature. We already kind of talked about it. Summer of Soul. Now, I know this is always a hard category because it's hard to see these documentaries sometimes. It's like sometimes these documentaries are stuck to festival circuits, and it's like you don't get a chance to see them. So I was kind of
like
glad.
Novelty theaters like the Coolidge that might like show them, but they're kind of inaccessible for like wider chains.
Right. So that's why I was happy Summer of Soul was on Hulu, was on Disney Plus. It's like, and then it winning, you're like, yeah, okay, good. Now it's everywhere so people can see it. And I think that's important with any of these documentary ones. They should be, it's like they're always it's like, yeah, you got to make the money for the documentary. You got to make your money back so you can keep making films. I'm not saying not to make money, but I do like when you can just see those movies, you know, like when it's around, because that's hard when it's like, oh, cool, documentary feature one. What is it? I don't know. I don't have access to it at all, you know, like,
yeah.
And Summer Soul, very accessible, great pickup and watch. I highly recommend this documentary right now. And it's a hard category for me because I love documentaries, but I do think sometimes they can be long in the tooth and they don't know how to end most of the time.
Yeah. And the general conceit of a documentary is that you have to at least have some interest in like the subject at hand in a way that it's easier for a narrative film to pitch to you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that it's
because there is some of that like feeling when you go sit down to a documentary, just like, I want to learn. Let
me learn this shit. And I think that's definitely a whole thing to it. And but I do appreciate when a movie knows its length and knows, you know, like its story's done and it's not like drawing out a third act to like just because, you know, like, and that's when I know a great documentary, you know, like is when it does know that stuff. And Summer of Soul is a great documentary.
Yeah.
Now best animated feature, you hadn't seen Encanto.
No, not
you
yet.
still haven't seen Encanto. Why not, Deshaun?
I got other shit to watch. While you were watching Encanto and West Side Story a bunch of times, I was watching Drive My Car and all this other shit.
Yeah, that's
let's put it that way.
Let's put it. I mean,
Disney ain't gonna starve because I haven't seen Encanto yet.
No, yeah, absolutely not. As we already said, it's the biggest movie of this decade at the moment, and especially
it's not something I'm actively like avoiding. Although it would be easy to annoy you about it.
I will say. And I won't talk too much about Encanto because maybe we'll do an episode when you finally see it. But I do love this movie. There's a reason why it's gigantic. You know, there's a reason why it's past the Frozen numbers. It's like this is a good Disney movie. It's one of those things that like when you see a Disney classic happen in front of your eyes, it's a great feeling, you know, like you're like, oh, this is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. You know, you're like watching it being like, oh, okay. I know that, all the kids at Mary's school love the music. They all know we don't talk about Bruno. You know, like all my nieces and nephews, even my brother, my niece there, Violet. She's just turned 1. She knows Encanto. When Encanto comes on, she moves. It's like, and she's such a big Lin-Manuel fan. I've been like trying to show this little one. Like Lin-Manuel stuff where like I'm like, would you like In the Heights, little baby? And she's like, you know, like looking at me like I don't speak. Like, and I'm just like you'll like In the Heights. And then she was moving to In the Heights. So she's already a super stan for Lin-Manuel, and you're like barely even.
It's gonna be really funny, and not that I hope that this is gonna happen, but if this turns out to be another Moana situation where everyone is just like drooling over it, and I'm like,
yes.
No, you're gonna be so goddamn upset with me.
No, I won't,
because I had the audacity to not like everything that Lin-Manuel Miranda does.
I mean, yes, you do have some audacity here, the fucking audacity. But
hey,
I will give you credit. Is that Moana is definitely? It's like when you ask me the plot of Moana, I don't remember it. You know, like I do like Moana when I watch it, but it doesn't stick. Encanto sticks. This is definitely, and it's kind of because it's a combination of like, it's a couple punch knockout. You know, like it's like Lin-Manuel songs, a magical house like Beauty and the Beast, great animation, and it's just like, and it's actually
Hispanic
got a
representation, I guess.
Yes, Hispanic representation, Colombian representation. Exactly. They even have a song. They're like that where I was like, I had to pause the movie when we were watching it the first time. I was like, Mary, are they saying "Let's Go Colombia" in a Disney movie? I was like, what's happening? Like, I was like, this is awesome. Like, I was like,
it's not one of those things where I think I'm gonna dislike it, but it would just be funny if that happened. But let me put it in terms you understand.
Yes.
Just because you like the songs in Aladdin doesn't mean you have to like the songs in Little Shop of Horrors because they're both Alan Menken.
True, absolutely true. I think that they're different genres, you know, like, and it's like, and some people aren't great at those genres. But I will give credit to Encanto. Like the other Disney movies that have been coming out recently, like Soul, like Turning Red, they're actually dealing with issues, you know, not just being like a classic Disney movie where it's just like a princess has a problem, you know, like this is like, hey, is your family toxic? You know, like, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, Coco was good about that too.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But what do you mean it's talking about real shit, Frank? I thought whenever we start to talk about real shit, we dump it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, right. No, I mean, they kind of did. Encanto came out, and then it was on Disney Plus a week later. They were like, we don't need ticket sales. People will still come and see this. We just need it in kids' eyes so they'll buy merchandise. You know?
Yeah.
Like, and it worked because now it was the number one song on Spotify. We Don't Talk About Bruno. It passed Frozen, you know, like they knew the real money was just getting it in front of kids, you know, like, and so they didn't screw it like Turning Red, where they were like, hey, it's got a movie theater release, where I even saw a stand up at AMC the other day. I went to AMC and they had a Turning Red stand up, and I was like, this is so sad, because this movie was supposed to have this big theatrical run, and then Disney was just like, nah, we'll just put it on Disney Plus. And
I'm glad that I haven't seen Turning Red yet, but I'm glad it seems to be better than the way it was advertised, just because
I've heard great things.
Animated children's films trailers are fucking trash, and I hate them so much.
Yes.
Especially from the non-Disney side. Ugh.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's also just like, well, you know, metaphor for like puberty and stuff like that. I'm like, I mean, I figured that. The film's called Turning Red, for fuck's sake.
I am excited. I haven't watched it yet myself, but it's one of those things that like, it's sad that somebody, like, animation takes a lot of work. It's like films may take a lot of work, but like animation, of course, takes a lot of effort, a lot of personal time for these artists to like get up close and make sure this film looks great, you know, like, and it's sad to see animated films just be regulated to non-theater releases, especially when they will sell tickets. So I don't understand. It's like some parents literally don't know what to do with their kids on the weekend, so they literally take them to the newest kids movie. So I don't understand when they take a kids movie off the theater like lineup, you know, like,
Yeah,
you're like,
I
you're like,
understood
it will make money. I don't understand. Like,
I understood at a very early age that my dad taking us to go see like animated films was mostly for us and not for him, because those were the only movies we would go to where he would fall asleep.
Oh yeah, he was just like, nah, I'm out.
But I was like, even as a kid, or just like, well, I appreciate you making the effort for us, for our sake.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only thing about this category, best animated feature, that we haven't gotten into yet, and of course that it was covered in Disney. It had Encanto, Luca, Raya the Last Dragon, which they're all actually, I loved Luca, and Raya the Last Dragon was actually pretty. I didn't hate it. I thought it was good. It's forgettable, but it's a good action Disney film. It's gonna play for years and years on Disney Plus. You know, like it probably made its money back in toys, so it didn't really matter. But I haven't seen Flea. I've seen but the real thing here in this category is the Mitchells versus the Machines, which I know you've seen.
Yeah, it's really good.
And I haven't seen it myself, but I know it's my boys. It's Phil Lord and
Chris Miller, which
Chris
they didn't
Miller.
direct it, they produced it, but it has like their stamp all over it.
Yeah, and it's like, it's one of those things that you're like, yeah, Disney of course like paid for this category, obviously, if they were putting up nominations and ads for Encanto, Luca, and Raya, you know, like they're basically paying for this category. But it's one of those things that like Mitchells versus the Machines, I've heard great things, and
Mitchells versus Machines is going to appeal to you specifically.
Yeah, I know.
Because it's about a girl going off to college for film school.
I know. I was like,
like
I was
one
seeing the
last road
trailers
trip.
and I was like, oh man,
Yeah,
they made
and
a
it's
movie
about,
about me.
their one last road trip as they try to drop her off into college, but oh shit, robot invasion. It's great.
It's great. And that's the thing. It's like, this is kind of it's a hard category because of course you had to give it to Encanto. It's the biggest movie of the year. It's a musical. It's like, it's all these things that the Academy loves, and that's what they were going to give it to. But like Mitchell versus Machine it was kind of the little like, yeah, let's have this win, you know, type of thing. And it's sad to not see them win, you know, like you're like, they didn't give it to Into the Spider-Verse. So it's like, come on, you know, like, you're like, let's give it to them at some point. But moving on, best adapted screenplay was the winner, Coda. We already did an episode, so check out that episode. But it's funny because I do like, we already said in Coda, I think it's a great movie. Very touching. It connects because we're from Massachusetts, and of course it's and it's extremely well done. But we did bring up in that review that we didn't love the ending, you know, like we didn't think the ending was extremely well written, because it stuck to the adapted part of the screenplay, its French counterpart. And it's one of those things that I was kind of like, I'm glad this won, because yes, it gives multiple awards to Coda, and you can say like Coda won multiple awards. But it's funny because like we had those problems with it, and I think that some people just kind of were like, nope, you know, like, nah, it's okay, we're gonna forgive those problems and we'll give it away. And I think that's cool anyways, you know, like, because you know, it would have been weird for this to go to Dune, you know, like I feel like there's, you know, Coda at least you know, is human.
I think you kind of fed the nerds enough with the stuff that Dune had already won.
Exactly. And you could have given it to Drive My Car here. I feel like that would have been like a good connection with, like, you know, Parasite winning best original screenplay. But I do think Coda deserves this award. I'm just saying it's funny because we did point out like a writing issue, and it won. anyways. So it's like,
But also, it was kind of
what do
cool
we
that
know?
we reviewed the movie before everyone started talking about it.
Right? Fuck yeah. But also, you know, go see the movie. Is really it. Is really all I'll say about Coda, and we'll say it for Best Pictures. Go see this movie.
It is worth, even if you plow through it just so you can unsubscribe, to get Apple TV Plus just so you can watch Coda, you can watch Tragedy of Macbeth, and you can binge through 2 seasons of Ted Lasso, and then you can bounce. It's fine.
You're like, if you got 2 weeks off, just get the 1 week promotional and just steam through Apple TV.
Yeah, just steam through what they got.
And it's kind of funny. Mary saw the ad for Severance with Adam Scott, and I was like, it's on Apple Plus. I was like, we have so many streaming services. I'm not buying Apple TV. Like, I'm just not. Like, it's like, yeah, I know Ted Lasso is gonna be great, but I'll wait till Apple TV bellies up and we have something else.
Yeah, and I
streaming
wouldn't.
these things.
And the thing about Ted Lasso is that it is produced by Warner Brothers, so I would not be surprised if it ended up on HBO Max at some point.
Exactly. If there's a couple streaming services that are gonna go belly up. We all know it. Peacock doesn't have the fucking chutzpah. I think Paramount Plus might be able to stick around, and of course
they
Disney
definitely
Plus
have enough IPs
Yeah.
to sustain themselves.
That's what I'm saying, is that like it takes IPs and it takes owning licenses, and like the thing about Paramount Plus, there's soccer on there, so it's gonna survive forever because people love their soccer and they can't get it in America. So unless you watch a free channel and you have no control over it, it's like, so that's why Paramount Plus is going to survive. It's like, yeah, Peacock has WWE, but I don't. It's one of those things that they like acquired it, you know, like the license to play it, you know, like they don't.
But Apple TV
own it.
Plus,
They'll lose
I will say, like, they're starting to consistently get like bigger and bigger hits, and it's one of those things where, like, I'll say this about Apple TV Plus: it is very stable.
Yeah, it doesn't fall apart like every
no,
other
it doesn't
service.
fall apart like HBO Max did, especially when it first came out. Paramount Plus is a fucking mess.
Yep. I am happy with HBO Max now, but it was rough at the beginning where I think you remember being over at my house where we'd back out of anything we watched and the whole app would just not do anything.
Shit the bed, yeah.
Apple
TV Plus, it's I've had no issues with the way it's run since I've like messed with it.
That's nice. It's like, and then you have Hulu and Prime, who have just the ugliest UI I've ever seen in my goddamn life, you know? And it's like, those UIs will keep people away from your services. Like Hulu and Prime just need to be so much prettier, and they just don't care.
Prime I can tolerate, but like I hate Hulu's just general interface and the way it works.
It's awful.
Trying to just find anything specific on Hulu is such a pain in the ass.
It's a huge pain in the ass. Thank God for Google TV, and I can just like talk into it and be like, I want this, and then it will find it even on Hulu, and I'm like, thank God. I don't want to search through. But Best original screenplay, Belfast. Another one that I
haven't seen Belfast. I really want to though.
Yes. So we won't stick around on this category too much. But
what was it beating out?
Beat out Licorice Pizza, King Richard, Don't Look Up, and The Worst Person in the World, which I've heard The Worst Person in the World is quite well written. So.
That's another one that was at the Coolidge, but I didn't go see it.
I think it's streaming now. I'm not sure where, but it's like, yeah. Now, we did talk a little bit about the best director category already. We kind of already brought it up, but I haven't seen Power Dog. Have you seen Power Dog?
No.
The Power of the Dog. I do. It's one of those things that now it's one best director. I'm like, now I gotta watch this. Like I was like, oh shit, Netflix is gonna get a watch from me. But it is on Netflix if you guys want to watch it. I am excited. A female director beat out this like stellar lineup here though, like Paul Thomas Anderson, Steven Spielberg, Kenneth Branagh, and Ryusuke Hamaguchi. It's those are legends, you know.
I am surprised that Licorice Pizza didn't walk away with more.
Yeah, it felt like they kind of did it even dirtier than The Power of the Dog. At least they gave Best Director The Power of the Dog. It's like they really shafted. They nominated Licorice Pizza and then didn't give it anything.
Yeah, and generally speaking, they tend to love PTA every time you put something out.
Right? Which admittedly so.
Yeah.
Like he's incredible. Now best supporting actor, Troy Custer from Coda. Yes. Of course. Like in my mind, of course. I think that I think that the other people in this category are quite good. Cody Smith McPhee for Power of the Dog. I'm gonna mispronounce this Irish name, but Cyan Hines in Belfast. Jesse Plemons from Power of the Dog, which 2 best supporting actor nominations in the same category makes you want to see that movie.
Yeah.
And then J.K. Simmons for being the Ricardos. Which I haven't seen that yet. I don't really.
It's not that good.
It doesn't have high ratings. That's the reason why I was confused.
They were really intent on making being the Ricardos a thing. It's like, look, I love Aaron Sorkin.
Yes,
but being the Ricardos wasn't it.
Oh,
that's one of those cases where like just watch Lucy and Desi instead, which is the documentary.
Yeah.
You're better off watching that.
Yeah, exactly. But of course, Troy absolutely deserves it for this. He of course gave one of the best speeches of the night. It was this great historic moment at that, the first deaf supporting actor winner.
Mhm.
Like, it's awesome. I completely agree with this because, and we said it in the Coda review, is that he does such a fantastic job and is able to just with, of course, no words. It's like convey so much, and I love it. It's incredible.
I mean, the parents in Coda were kind of like the highlight. Like they were
Yeah.
the most fun to watch.
Exactly. So it's like, yeah, give it to her. Give it to him. Now, best supporting actress, Ariana DeBose for West Side Story. Yeah. I know you haven't seen it, but this was, for me, this was the easy win. I was like, if they're not going to give it to Dunst for Power of the Dog, because I know Kirsten Dunst, it's like she's been nominated sometimes and she never wins, and it's one of those things that, like, I kind of thought she was going to win because it's like people are come on.
Yeah, there are those years where like just because you've been nominated so much, you finally get it. Like when Scorsese finally won for The Departed, you're just like, I mean, I like The Departed, but he should have won for some of his better films before that.
Exactly. But and then we have oh my God, I'm not going to be able to pronounce it, but the best supporting actress from King Richard, Ellis, and then Dame Judi Dench from Belfast, which you're like, that was the other thing. You're like, you're not going to give an Oscar to Dame Judi Dench, like, you're like, all right. And then Jessie Buckley for The Lost Daughter. I do think that Ariana was a highlight in West Side Story. She's fantastic. She brings the most dramatic moment in the entire show and does it with such a ferocity that, like, it's wonderful. And I wasn't surprised when she won. I was just kind of like, oh, at least, like, I thought they were going to give it to Dunst. I did. But it's great. I love that since she won that. Now, we won't go into anything about Will Smith's Best Actor win, but did you see King Richard?
No,
I haven't seen it yet, and I do want to watch it. It's like, I've been a lifelong Will Smith fan. My mom's a huge Will Smith fan. This tore her up. This tore my mom up.
He's been Oscar baiting for like most of his career since he transitioned the movies.
My mom said he didn't, but when I said, like, he won his first Oscar, she was like, he didn't win for Ali, and I was like, no. Which
didn't win for
good point, right? Good point.
He didn't win for Pursuit of Happiness either,
right?
Or
that was a weird one.
He was really campaigning hard for that one.
Yeah, it's one of those things that, like, this is such a shitty moment because now he's resigned from the Oscars, which I think is the best thing, because that's the only thing I'll say about this is that, like, if the Oscars tried to punish him, that would be a terrible look for the Oscars, like taking
Yeah.
back the Oscar, because there was talk of that, like taking back the Oscar. I'm like, that's a terrible look. That is awful to try to be like, unless he did something like he slapped another millionaire, you know, like it's not like John Wayne being racist and wanting to kick the crap out of an a Native American actress because he's racist, you know, like if we're talking real ugly moments, that's an ugly fucking moment.
That is an ugly moment, but that's one of those things where like, we're not trying to, how do I put this? Both are bad moments. Let's just put it that way.
Both are bad moments. That's the thing. And
just like, it doesn't excuse this just because that's much worse.
I do want to bring up something that I haven't seen in any of the conversations, is the reason why I think Will thought he could get on stage is that this was a very low stage. If you watch, there's a behind the scenes clip of Anthony Hopkins walking on stage, and he shows it from behind the stage, and you can see that there's only one step up onto the stage. So they didn't want Jennifer Lawrence tripping. It was obviously, they were like,
that's what it was. We all know it. We all know it.
But it's funny because I think it's, as a guy who put on concerts, it's really important for, if you don't want your audience to interact with the artists, to have them up on a stage, to have that, like, just a mental block, like, you know, like that you can't get up there, you know, like that something will stop you before you get up there.
Yeah.
And if you look at this stage, Will is first off in the front rows, and it's just a step up. So they all felt like they were part of the show more than they probably should have. Is my one thing we'll say, and we'll be done with it, is that, like, I do think that's actually it. That's what happened, is that the stage was too low and you didn't have that, like, audience separation, you know?
Yeah,
like,
amongst other baggage,
other things,
but we don't need to get into.
But yeah, exactly. But I do want to see this, and it was quite the stacked category. Benedict Cumberbatch, Andrew Garfield, Denzel Washington, Javier Bardem. For me, it was either Andrew Garfield's year or they were going to give it to Benedict Cumberbatch, because I don't think he's won one yet. I'm not sure. This was a category of people who haven't won with Denzel Washington in a while. And
what was it called? The fucking
Benedict?
I'm blanking.
Oh yes, I know what you're saying. What, that movie? Oh, The Imitation Game.
Yes.
Did he win that? I'm not sure.
I don't know if he did.
But moving on. Best Actress category. I already said it. After seeing her in The Eyes of Tammy Faye, for me, it's an extremely easy win for this category. She was doing triple duty. She absolutely kills it in the role. You can see the love in the role, the pathos, and I just thought it was incredible.
Yeah, any given category for award shows like this, I usually have my two picks. So like, if either of them win, I'm usually happy. And for this case, while the show was going on, I had a friend ask me, who are you rooting for Best Actress? I'm like, well, I haven't seen Spencer.
Yes, I do want to see Spencer.
So my two choices were either Jessica Chastain or Penelope Cruz.
Yeah, and I think this is another, of course, stacked category, is that, like, Olivia Colman already won last year, and then you have Nicole Kidman, who's won multiple times, you know, like, she's slowly turning into the Meryl Streep of this, you know, of our generation. And then I think Kristen Stewart, I've heard great things. And Penelope Cruz, I was like, of course. Yeah, that would be awesome if Penelope Cruz could win, you know, like, you're like, fuck yeah, give it to her. But just for me, this, after watching it yesterday, it's such a simple win in my mind. I'm like, Jessica Chastain was amazing in this role, completely makes this movie. I mean, it's a great movie, and I think Andrew Garfield's great in it, and Vincent D'Onofrio's, of course, great in it. It's a great cast, but she's amazing. She's what brings the je ne sais quoi, the step above, what elevated that movie. And then we've reached it. We've reached the Best Picture category, Coda, and we have already done. Yeah, beating out a stacked category. We got The Power of the Dog, West Side Story, Belfast, Dune, Licorice Pizza, King Richard, Don't Look Up, Drive My Car, and Nightmare Alley. Now, I will say it's always an honor to be nominated for an Oscar. Always.
Yeah.
Always. I think the biggest honor, it just being nominated in any way, is Best Picture. It's such a nod from your fellow artists. You know, that's what that's what the Oscars is supposed to be in the fucking first place. And then it's turned into the terrible jokes. But like, is that this is supposed to be a giant nod from your fellow artists being like, you made something great. Thank you for making something great, you know, like for really contributing to our art, you know, like, and I think that's why this category is so large, is that it is, 10 people or 9 or 10 nominations every year. And is it 10 this year? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
They've definitely increased it more and
10,
more over the years.
True. It used to be like 5. It
like
used to be like everything in 5.
Yeah.
And I think they've really expanded over the past couple of years for good reasons. There was a couple of years where you were like, how could you not nominate these movies for Best Picture? You know, like you're like, damn. Now we've gone through a bunch of these movies already. I did like that West Side Story was even up for Best Picture because, of course, Steven Spielberg, you're like, yeah, man, give him more nominations. You know, like this is a living legend with us. And The Power of Dog, of course, if it won Best Director, if it's not up for Best Picture, you're insulting them. And then Belfast, same thing. Dune, it's like, I love that Dune was here. You know, like that's awesome. I always think it's awesome when
I figured it wasn't going to win, but I'm glad it was there. In the same way that like Mad Max Fury Road was nominated for Best Picture the year that came out. I'm like, that ain't winning, but I'm glad it's here.
Right, I'm glad it's here. Now, did you think that Licorice Pizza was going to be the winner here? Was this your second pick, or what was your second pick?
I was thinking between just based on like the vibe of like what the Academy seemed to nominate a lot. And, you know, there's always that like checks and balances thing of like, well, we didn't win here, so let's give them something here, etc. And I will compliment this year is that there was a lot of like spreading the wealth this year for the most part.
Yeah. I think it was a very fair year.
I would have bet more on Licorice Pizza or The Power of the Dog for like Best Picture because they seem to really love Power of the Dog. So Coda winning was actually a genuine surprise.
Yeah, it was. It was one of those things that it was like the underdog, and I glad the underdog won. You know, like, and I know it's just kind of like it's sort of a clickbaity thing for the Oscars to do, you know, but but that's because it's a historic moment. You know, you have to write about it. Like this movie about deaf parents, deaf adults, like is won Best Picture. It's a Massachusetts film, winning Best Picture. First off, hell yeah, all the time, yeah, because that's gonna bring more work here. That's it. Is that like for me?
And it's also
that's a huge thing. You know,
it's also a little more cheerier.
Yes.
Of a film than say something like Manchester by the Sea, which is a great movie, but it's fucking harrowing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, it's one of those things that like a lot of the Massachusetts wins can be draining to watch.
Yeah.
Like, Coda is very life affirming, you know, like, and it fills you up. And I think that also that's the reason why it won, is that there's a lot of dramatic stories going on in these Best Picture winners. But the one that made you feel the best walking away was Coda, you know, like other than, of course, you were like, you go walk out of Dune and you're going, Dune. But like, it's like, if we're talking about what made you feel the best as you walked out of the theater, which I know is not the highest form of way to review a movie. But it also, when you're talking about like the art of film, that's another important part of it, is how does your audience walk away, you know, like, and I think that if we're talking about the movies on this list, all of them either hit you with doom and gloom or something serious towards the end. Other than I don't know about Licorice Pizza. I don't think it was very doomy gloomy, but it's like Coda was the kind of uplifter here, and in a good way, you know, like it does feel like the Academy sometimes will just give it to the most historic film and it doesn't matter, because I think the obvious one is, how did the Green Book win at Best Picture? Like, it's one of those like
how did Spike Lee lose to Driving Miss Daisy twice in his lifetime?
Yeah. Exactly. I saw did you see the clip of him from that Oscars though? They were like, well, why didn't you like Green Book? It's these British guys, and they're like, well, why didn't you like Green Book? It won Best Picture, and it's about African American stories. And he goes, I'll put, you guys are British, right? You guys are British. I'll put it in your terms. It wasn't my cup of tea. It wasn't my cup of tea. And I was like, Spike Lee. Like, you're just like, what a fantastic quote. But
Yeah.
it's true. That's my problem with Green Book. Is that like if we're talking about important stories, like, and actually well told great stories, Spike Lee's should be the fucking winners of that shit, like, and not Green Book.
Yeah, it has that.
I think it's one of those like, if you look at the long list of Best Picture winners all through history, Green Book's really low in my book. Really low. And the other really low one is West Side Story, the original. But that won 10 Oscars, so what the fuck do I know? That's like that's the fourth highest, behind the 11 wins that Titanic, Lord of the Rings, and one other have. I can't remember. But Ben-Hur has 11 Oscars. So it's like what that's why I was surprised West Side Story didn't win Best Picture here, because it won Best Picture last time. It was up for nomination, and I was kind of like, does the Academy follow through? Like being like, yeah, this is better. Doesn't feel racist.
I will like say this. I get the Oscars being desperate these last few years just because the ratings keep tanking and tanking and tanking.
Award shows in general tanking. Like,
But it's one of those things where, like, it's a pity because I think there were a lot of really good nominations and of sort of like spreading the wealth as far as the wins. Like, there was nothing that made me like, what the fuck? I had no reaction like that.
Even Cruella, I was like, that makes sense. So, like it's not like a what the fuck moment.
Like, all of my issues pertaining to this year were all in the ceremony itself. Yeah. And even beyond the slap, just like the Amy Schumer stuff just not being funny. The whole show was edited super weird and haphazardly this year.
Yep.
Like, it was just so odd and felt like it was hobbled together, and like the disrespect to animation. And I really, really fucking hated taking some of the categories and not televising them.
Yes.
And then lying about the show being live.
Yes. It feels disrespectful, like that's basically it.
I put it this way, like, Sam Jackson got his lifetime achievement, like Oscar.
Yeah,
after an almost 50-year career. Sam Jackson, like one of our greatest living actors who's been at the game for half a century, finally got his first Oscar, and no one fucking saw it. And Denzel gave it to him. Right?
You're like, that is such a great TV moment. Who the fuck is producing this show? Like, it's one of those things that, like, I'm sorry, I cut shows for a living, so I know what's good TV. I know what fucking works on screen. And you know what works on screen? Samuel Jackson getting his one Oscar from Denzel Washington. And these two great men just lifting each other up. How is that not a great TV moment? Like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
like,
and just the whole facade of it being live at like the red carpet, while you can see filmmakers tweeting about them being at the awards section that's not televised right now, and a bunch of filmmakers being like, what the fuck? Edgar Wright was like, what the hell? This should be televised. Guillermo del Toro was like, what the fuck? This should be televised. We shouldn't be eating at a separate table. We should all come together.
It's one of those things that it's for filmmakers by filmmakers. So how are they missing this? Like, how do they not understand that, like, sure, the red carpet's great, but like that should be on E or some other channel. It's like, that shouldn't be happening for the main broadcast. Like,
I hate the red carpet. I never watch it. I always wait until the actual award ceremony starts. I don't care. It's a fashion show. I don't give a fuck.
I love the fashion, like, I get it. I'm like, wow, some really great dresses, everyone looks great. Like, that's half the fun of the Oscars. Does it need to take up award time? No, not at all. Like, that shouldn't be happening, like that's insane to me, because it's one of those things that this is the Academy of Motion Pictures. Like, show the awards for the motion picture. Like, what the fuck is happening? Like,
Yeah. It's absolutely ridiculous. And how do you think it makes that section of filmmakers feel
yeah, right.
when you put them in this corner over here and they're not worth being televised?
Yeah, it's upsetting, and it's the same thing as they put the technical awards the night before and they don't televise it. They at least put it on the internet last year, but it's one of those things that you're like, what? you're like you guys act like you don't have time for this award show when it's the only new content you're fucking playing on your network that day. You know, like,
Yeah,
you're
that's the
playing
thing.
reruns most of the day, and it's like, what? Like, you know, like, what's happening? You know, like,
And it's one of those things where, like, don't use the excuse that you don't have time, because you're using that time to fill it in with unfunny bullshit.
right?
Just get to the goddamn point.
Oh my God. It's like, I get doing a joke before giving the award. Like, that always, that works. But doing whole bits doesn't work. And I did forget to bring up the we don't talk about Bruno bit. Why was it a remix? Why was it something not we don't talk about Bruno? You know, like, and directly from the movie performed live. Like, that was another, like, huge, like, you don't understand the show you're putting together. What is happening here? You know, like, because that's, I would have been like, no, I get it. You got these big names. That's not it. You know, like, that's not what we should put on here. Especially because I saw a lot of kids were kind of disappointed. I saw a couple tweets about, like, parents being like, we knew We Don't Talk About Bruno was going to play during the Oscars, so we watched it. And it was not We Don't Talk About Bruno, and my kid didn't understand it and, like, you know, didn't connect with it because they thought it was a different song. You know, like, it's just, shows more they don't understand the audience they're showing this off to, you know, like, or even doing it for, you know, like, and I don't know. It's sad because it's one of those things that the only award show I do care about is the Oscars. It's the only one
generally speaking,
about.
All the other ones I tend to just kind of clown on for a while.
You're right. I do like seeing the Tonys afterward, you know, like, I like seeing all the performances and stuff, and I'm definitely not watching the Grammys. If we're talking about a messy show, the Grammys is a messy show. Like, that's definitely one that I'll watch clips of afterward. I'll be like, oh, Dua Lipa performed? Hell yeah. You know, like, I'll watch that. But, like, I am not turning it on. Even this year they have it on Hulu and Disney Plus, I think, where they're streaming the Grammys. Prime, I think, has it where they're streaming the Grammys, and I'm kind of like, nah. Like, just like, I love music. I will
say this because we didn't bring this one up. The fan favorite winner.
Oh, I can't believe we almost forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. What the fuck?
The memes. The memes.
The memes are so hard.
It's so good. I'm so glad people. As soon as that happened, I'm like, people are gonna be so mad. I'm so happy.
So obviously, very stupid idea. They were like, we're gonna put a Twitter poll out that we'll announce during the show. Which, first off, this makes you even angrier for the awards they didn't show on screen because they're gonna do this Twitter poll on screen instead. You're like,
yeah, them trying to be like, have the normies love us, guys.
And really, what happened is that the Snyder defenders, the Snyderverse defenders, came out in mass.
Yeah,
they crushed any sense of this being a fair vote in any way, which I kind of approve of. I sort of approve of it, but, like,
I admire it.
Yes, exactly. I don't like that it's basically a troll, because the vote was the most iconic movie moment, and for some reason Citizen Kane was in the same category as Flash entering the Speedverse and the 3 Spider-Man scene from No Way Home, and you're like, what's
that's
happening?
The thing. That's what happens when you let, like, Twitter do it. Like, it was mostly all recency bias shit.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that you were trying to vote on the best, like, cinematic moment in movie history, and that was, like, the way they phrased it. You know, it wasn't like this year's best moment. You know, like, it was like movie history.
That
and you're
might
like,
as well have been what it ended up as. Just like, it might as well have been just like big moment that I remembered from this past year that I really liked. And
it was a double win for Zack Snyder. He won best cinematic moment for Flash enters the Speed Force. And then Army of the Dead won something. I was very confused by what the poll was.
Fan favorite film or something like that.
Yeah, of just the year.
Army of the Dead. Yeah.
Which that's how you know they were trolling. That we did an episode on Army of Dead.
We like Army of the Dead.
We like Army of Dead. It's definitely not the fan favorite of the year. You know, like that is not true. I do kind of like dunking on Marvel and Disney with this poll because it was like obvious that Spider-Man probably should have won. And I'm glad that like, you know, they got dunked on, but it's still one of those things that you're like, do you feel like Zack Snyder's insulted or happy about this? Because like, you know, like I would feel weird about this, that like, I would feel cool that my fans felt so passionate that they did something, but I would feel weird that I wasn't up for anything else.
If they were going to push the Snyder cut, I mean, that's kind of the scene you want to push.
Oh,
like memes aside, I love that moment.
Oh yeah, no, and that's the thing here is that like, do I think it should have won that poll? Maybe not. Is it my favorite moment of that movie? Absolutely. And I already said that was one of my favorites of the past year when we did our recap. It's like I did like the Snyder Cut. I watched it twice. It's a long ass movie. And I watched it twice. I was like, put that baby on in black and white now. And
it also doesn't have. It also doesn't have to rely on nostalgia from older movies.
Exactly. And exactly. That's gonna be a lot coming up though. But I do. It's kind of one of those things that like I do appreciate that they came out to help him. I don't like that he wasn't nominated for anything else, you know, like where it's just like I feel bad because it's like one of those things that like the Academy didn't think you were good enough to be nominated, but your fans came out in mass to make sure you won a category that you probably shouldn't have. Like, you know, like you're like question mark, like, cause who knows, but you're just like, okay, sure. Like, I did love the memes though. Like Will like what they had the clip where Will walks up and they're like, Will enters the Speed Force. And that was probably my favorite meme out of all of it because you're just like, other than the Fibonacci sequence over the slap, that I don't know why that like killed me, that the Fibonacci like that it was a perfectly framed shot of him slapping him, you know, like that the cameraman did his fucking job, even if it was this like crazy moment, you know, like that's the only thing I gave super credit to this show is that I was like, they did get that fucking absolutely crazy moment. Hats off to the cameramen for this show because they were worth their weight in gold, you know. Like, so basically, to sum up the Oscars, this was a weird one.
It was a shit show.
It was a shit show. I think that the awards worked out, like
at least as far as the ceremony itself was concerned.
Yes.
How it was put together. The actual like nominees and winners, I don't really have that much of a problem with at all.
Yeah, and it makes me worry for next year, obviously, and future years, is that they're gonna get more and more desperate. I think the Spider-Man Amy Schumer thing was a new low of desperate jokes, and I really, it makes me worried because it's like for the next couple of years, people are going to be kind of scared to be part of the Oscar ceremony, you know, like, of course they're going to be like super security about it. And the stage is going to be so much higher now. And like, nobody's going to be able to get up there. Except for a joke. Of course, they're going to do a slap joke next year. Somebody's going to fake it, you know, like,
that's going to be something.
I haven't even seen the SNL skit yet, but I know they did it. So,
oh, sure, of course.
I know they talked.
James Corden did something for it too, and I think
that was rough. I saw that one. I was like, James, how much cringe can you make in one lifetime? You know, like you're just like, this is serious. Like, and the man, like, I also watched. Speaking of absolutely terrible movies that almost won that Twitter poll, was Cinderella almost won that Twitter poll there, and. What was James Corden thinking? He's like, I was terrible as a mouse in Cats, and everyone hated that and memed on me. I'm going to be another mouse in another movie that is panned critically. You know, like you're like, who is casting him as a mouse all the time? What is happening?
He's also in like garbage like Peter Rabbit and shit. So
yeah, you're just like, come on. He's the king of cringe right at the moment.
Yeah.
You know, like it's just like, jeez. And I scared that maybe they'll have James Corden as a host next year or something like that. You know, like, but who knows? Now, and of course, it's like, it's one of those things that like they also announced the Oscars doing this whole virtual show on Facebook Live, which where they announced the nominations, which I actually watched that, and I like the nomination show that was virtual a lot more than the whole actual ceremony, which was sad because it was like stapled together with fucking nothing, you know, glue and paste. It's like, and it still was more enjoyable than this entire show, you know, like, and I was kind of like, that's sad. But beside the point, guys, thank you for listening to our Oscar episode. We do have an Oscar episode from last year, so go check that out.
And unintentionally already have a Best Picture episode. We didn't have to pull the thing that we did with Parasite. Just like, oh, already done. Work's already done.
Work's over. So be able to check all the episodes out on galaxyofgeek.com, where we post every episode. And you can also check it out on any podcast platform you can think of. And basically, guys, make the algorithm work. You know, comment, subscribe, do the thing, so that way we can continue to give you guys more episodes. And really want to thank you guys for listening in and supporting the show. Every one of you that's listening to this point, I am extremely thankful for. So thank you for listening to us over all the other podcasts that are out there, or with all those other podcasts, because support those boys. And
support smaller movies.
Yeah, basically support smaller movies, support your small podcast, and you know, don't miss out because it's small is basically the lesson from this Oscars. Really, don't other than get a higher stage, is don't miss out on great little movies.
Yeah,
you know,
it was validating to see that I had seen most of the Best Picture categories, because I've gone out of my way to be like, I need to go to the movies more, and it needs to not be blockbuster shit.
Yeah,
all the time. It can't be the only thing I go to the movies for.
Yeah, I think that's an important outlook on life for looking at this genre, you know, this medium. So you can find me and Deshaun on Twitter and Instagram as Frank
Mod Karaka,
and Gundam if you like Gundams. And I got a lot of them. Guys, thank you for supporting the show. Thank you, even though that like the Oscars was a shit show, for listening to our episode, and hopefully it wasn't a shit show listening to us. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, guys. Adios.
See you next time.